Some booking decisions make you scratch your head so hard it's like Brock Lesnar has gone to work on it with those stiff elbows. Other times they can convince you that you're suffering the hallucinatory effects of a concussion brought on by a stiff knee to the face. Sure, the WWE do tend to get a lot of their booking decisions correct, but we all know how often they don't. In this list, we're going to count down 10 of the times WWE has managed to get their booking astronomically wrong at the biggest party of the summer. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and this is 10 times the wrong person won at SummerSlam. Join us! Number 10, KANE defeats Matt Hardy in a Till Death Do Us Part match. Ownership over a woman was at stake in this match. Let me just check the date this took place. Oh, it was this century. For piss sake, WWE, what were you thinking? KANE wanted to own Matt's real-life girlfriend Lita as part of a storyline in which he had impregnated her. Matt wanted to defend her honor and set her free of the clear danger of impending imprisonment. So they had a match to see who owned her. Wrestling! SummerSlam came, and by the time it went, KANE had won ownership over a former women's champion. I dare anyone to argue that this was the correct result. Number 9, Jinder Mahal defeats Shinsuke Nakamura. It's hard to argue that Shinsuke Nakamura was ever hot as a babyface on SmackDown, but it's for damn certain that his loss to Jinder Mahal at SummerSlam 2017 certainly killed off any chances of the former IWGP champion being a legitimate babyface main eventer on the brand. We get it, Mahal was the WWE's experiment of 2017, and he wasn't too far into his run as WWE champion at the time, but we all acknowledged that he was an undeserving champion, and Nakamura was the cool, fresh new thing on the block with the legitimate tools needed to be a champion and to most importantly be victorious over a guy who was a glorified jobber just months prior. There weren't too many people who had predicted a Nakamura victory here, but given Mahal's racist promos in the build-up to this show, and the fact that Nakamura could have had the same gimmick as Mahal and been much more effective in pulling it off, this result just didn't make sense from a storyline perspective, or if we were judging this as a legitimate sport. What's worse is that Mahal was the sort of heel who never seemed to get his comeuppance, and he more than deserved to get it here. Racism isn't good, kids. Racism is not good. Number 8, Stephanie McMahon defeats Brie Bella. Coming out of retirement for the first time in 10 years to beat a woman who was full-time and a former champion was always going to be a stretch in realism. And even with the unforeseen swerve of assistance from Brie's twin sister Nikki, the results still didn't sit right. Brie Bella was a women's locker room leader and at the top of her division, so having her be the one to face Stephanie in 2014 made sense, especially given how Stephanie had been running down her husband for months. Stephanie, a former women's champion in her own right, held a heightened strength advantage that was clear to see, but again, she hadn't been in a ring for 10 years. Yet still, she dominated almost all of the matchup. Thus, after little by the way of a fight back, Stephanie won with the previously mentioned assistance of Nikki Bella, and then quickly dove back into retirement from the ring. It was a needless victory that did nothing for Stephanie, and even less for Brie. It's almost as if Stephanie helped write the show. Oh wait. Number 7, The Big Show defeats Punk, Gallows, and Mercury. Back in 2010, the Straight Edge Society was a thing, and CM Punk was the biggest heel on SmackDown. He had come to be feuding with The Big Show as SummerSlam approached, and as such, the pair were booked into a match, only it wouldn't be a one-on-one, it would be Big Show versus Punk and his two cronies, Luke Gallows and Joseph Mercury, in a 3-on-1 handicap match. It seems like this would make for the perfect circumstances under which the babyface would inevitably fail, albeit reluctantly and with a great deal of fire in his belly. Wrong. Big Show won. He not only survived the constant onslaught of 3 men, including a legitimate upper mid-card guy and a 6'5" behemoth, but he pinned both Gallows and Mercury at the same time using just one hand. Who booked this crap? Punk could have done with the win, and any comeuppance he was due to get should have come via a one-on-one encounter when his dastardly heel character was left with no more excuses. And poor Gallows and Mercury. Number 6, Hulk Hogan defeats Randy Orton. Mr. Terry Hulk Hogan Bollea has hardly been one to lay down for, well, anyone over the years. But in 2006, at the very end of his in-ring career in the WWE, he beat Randy Orton in what had to be an act of pure stupidity on a level all by itself. The backstory here is that Orton had ran through a series of legends with his legend killer gimmick, and Hogan was the natural progression to weeks and months of spitting in faces and getting himself over as a top heel. Hogan, then 52, was in the driver's seat as far as the feud went. After all, who wants to see the guy who spits and assaults women come out on top of this type of story? But Orton was just 26 at the time, and arguably as red hot as he's ever been. A victory here would have been astronomical for the young star. Yet alas, it was not to be, as Hogan swiped and swooshed that magic wand once more to ensure that he went over, not only stifling a strong Randy Orton run, but damaging the legitimacy of the entire business in the process. Nice work, Hulk. We'll be back to you later on. Number 5, Shawn Michaels defeats Vader. The main event of the 1996 SummerSlam pay-per-view was filled with all sorts of shenanigans and circumstances, with the match actually ending twice before its final and most contentious fall. Vader had beaten Michaels via DQ, but because the title couldn't change hands by disqualification, Vader's manager Jim Cornette had pleaded for the match to be restarted. Michaels agreed, then lost by DQ again, so the match was restarted again. On the third fall, Michaels stole the match and retained the title, in the process burying the monstrous Vader under a stack of ineptitude, making him look so weak he wasn't even able to properly beat the far smaller Michaels over the course of 3 entire matches. In effect, Michaels buried him. Vader would never reach such heights as a big pay-per-view main event ever again in his WWE career, despite his widely acknowledged talents and generally frightening demeanor. This match just made him seem stupid and incapable, and to a level so high that he could never really come back from it. Number 4, Triple H wins the Elimination Chamber. Nursing an undefined injury and heading into WWE's most unforgiving structure as a heel WWE champion, Triple H never seemed like the best choice to win the 2003 Elimination Chamber. But tag onto that a red-hot Bill Goldberg at the height of his WWE run, and the injustice in this result becomes a clear and obvious error from the WWE booking team that cannot be overlooked. It seemed like everything in this match was designed to conspire against Goldberg, because it surely can't have been Triple H's chummy relationship to head of creative Stephanie McMahon and her father Vince. Goldberg was booked to enter the match last, some 5 minutes after Triple H, and the psychology behind the actions of various characters inside the structure were all designed to ensure that the crowd were willing for Triple H to finally get his comeuppance. And he didn't. I mean, of course he didn't. 2002 to 2004 Triple H was a monster on screen and behind the scenes, with the entire show revolving around his every action. It was a time in which every new push was squashed by his pretty little boots. Even so, surely Goldberg was enough of a star and enough of a draw to be worthy of setting Triple H's reign to the side for just a short while? No. Helmsley hit Goldberg with a sledgehammer while Bill went for his signature spear, and then he pedigreed him, earning the win and making Goldberg look weak and stupid in equal measure. This was pure nonsense as the direct result of an overinflated ego with too much backstage sway. It was absolutely the wrong result. Number 3, Hulk Hogan defeats Shawn Michaels. We all know how much politicking Hulk Hogan got up to during his career. He's arguably still doing it. He's the sort of guy who'd sell his own kids for a spot in the limelight or the right pay packet. Just watch Hogan knows best if you don't believe me. Come SummerSlam 2005, it seemed like he'd met his match in the just as controversially unprofessional Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, of whom he'd share the main event with that year. Michaels, some 11 years younger than Hogan, and still a regular part of WWE's weekly televised product at the time, was booked to lose against Hogan, with the plan being to have Michaels win in a rematch later down the road. As it has been told, Michaels was informed late on in the process of preparing for his SummerSlam match that Hogan was physically unable to do more than one match, and the decision had been made for Hogan to go over. It was classic Hogan politicking, the likes of which had become famous during his WCW run, and the whole situation was made worse by the fact that nobody other than Hogan agreed that it should happen. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Michaels flopping around like a soggy pancake was hardly Vince McMahon approved, but the match wasn't cut short, and we never did hear of any ramifications. Michaels effectively called Hogan out on his BS in front of the world, and much of the world laughed in unison with Michaels while he did it. HBK deserved the victory and was always the right choice to be the owner of the W, as he was more present on TV, in better shape, the better wrestler, and the guy who could give other guys the rub. Hogan won officially, but he may have lost more than just a 3 count regarding respect from the fans. Number 2, Alberto Del Rio defeats CM Punk. The summer of 2011 has been christened by wrestling fans, analysts, and critics alike as the Summer of Punk, a period of time in which CM Punk defined his legacy by leapfrogging his way from the brink of the main event to the peak of the pyramid, slaying seeing the evils of the WWE machine to crown himself the guy in professional wrestling. Shortly after his famous pipe bomb, Punk walked out of Money in the Bank as WWE champion and abruptly left the company, at least as far as storylines go. Not long after, John Cena was crowned WWE champion on an episode of Raw, which brought Punk back quicker than you can say ice cream bars. Punk versus Cena, WWE champion versus WWE champion was set for SummerSlam with Triple H as the guest referee. Punk won. Correct result. What wasn't quite so rosy was the result that followed. In the midst of celebrating his successful title defense, Punk was attacked by Kevin Nash, who laid him out with a jackknife powerbomb and therefore made him ripe for the pickings of the then Money in the Bank briefcase holder Alberto Del Rio. Del Rio, a guy who had been pushed to the moon despite barely anyone caring that much for him, won the belt. Wrong result. Del Rio walked into the Raw after SummerSlam as the WWE champion, with the hottest act in the industry relegated into a feud with an aging Kevin Nash. It could have derailed Punk entirely, yet luckily for us, it didn't. Even so, the question remains of exactly how big Punk could have become with the WWE machine behind him and the title in his hands. Wrapping the belt around Del Rio at that time was just about the most stupid decision of the era. The following entry not included. Number 1, Team WWE defeats the Nexus. Back in the summer of 2010, a collection of young upstarts fresh out of developmental appeared in the crowd during a main event of Raw, invading the ring and wrecking everything in sight, including the biggest dog in the fight, no, not him, John Cena. Fast forward a little while and the WWE was on lockdown. The Nexus, as they were known, were running roughshod over the promotion, prematurely ending matches, beating up unsuspecting staff, and generally causing a massive nuisance. The scoundrels. This left locker room leader and all-around Superman babyface John Cena with no other choice than to challenge the group to an elimination tag match at SummerSlam that year. In his words, the future of WWE was at stake. And so it came to pass that Wade Barrett, Justin Gabriel, Skip Sheffield, Heath Slater, Michael Tarver, Darren Young, and David Otunga would face a WWE Dream Team of John Cena, Edge, Chris Jericho, Bret Hart, a returning Daniel Bryan, John Morrison, and R-Truth. The WWE team went into the match without a final member until Daniel Bryan was announced as a surprise as the match was about to begin, and the team was made up of characters that were feuding with one another or simply never got along, with Edge and Chris Jericho being the most anti-Cena of the group. The Nexus, meanwhile, were a well-oiled machine with no ego standing over another, a cohesive unit of which it had been proven that there was no comparison. It seemed like a no-brainer, right? Wrong. Despite Team WWE losing guys to DQs, Edge and Jericho turning on their team halfway through the match, and the Nexus being the younger unit most in need of the victory, and even despite the fans wanting to see a changing of the guard, John Cena won. As the final member of Team WWE, he overcame both Wade Barrett and Justin Gabriel, each of whom had been booked as the most dangerous members of the new stable, to win the match for Team WWE and kill the Nexus in their tracks. It was an awful decision that nobody involved felt was the correct result, with even Cena admitting his regret over the call in the years since. In 2018, the only Team Nexus member remaining on the active roster is Heath Slater. That just about says it all. So that's our list. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and you can follow me on Twitter here. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.